Welcome, welcome. I have been telling you all about the powerful men of Corpus Christi, the judge who hanged an innocent woman, and the slave owner who became the mayor of your city. History is written by the powerful, but the truth doesn't just disappear. That's why I'm here. Their names were Sammy and Alvina Moore, and their love story, in the middle of the darkest systems in American history, is one of the most extraordinary things that I have ever found in the history of this city. Let me start with Malvina. Her last name before slavery took everything from her was Garrett. She was a Black and Native American blood. In 1848, the family that owned her packed up and left Mississippi. They were heading to a small settlement on the Texas Gulf Coast called Corpus Christi. The Mexican-American War had just ended. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed on February 2nd of 1848, just months before they left Mississippi. The United States had just seized over 525,000 square miles of Mexican territory. The country was celebrating expansion. Malvina Garrett arrived on January 1st of 1849, New Year's Day. Malvina Garrett was one of the very first slaves ever brought to this city. She arrived on the first day of a new year with no freedom anywhere in sight. Now, let me tell you about Sammy. Samuel Moore, born in Georgia around 1817. If you watched episode 3, you know his story with Colonel Moore. You know the foundry, you know Mexico, and you know that he chose to stay. What you do not know is what happened when Sammy met Malvina. According to historical records, Colonel Moore bought her for him, so his slave could marry the woman that he loved. But here is what I did not tell you in those last episodes. Under Texas law, slaves had no legal rights of marriage or family. They could be bought, sold, mortgaged, and hired out. Their enslaver legally owned anything that they possessed. They could not enter a contract. They could not own property. And they also could not legally marry. Their love was real. Their commitment was real. Their family was real. But on paper, it did not exist. In 1856, Malvina gave birth to their daughter, Annie. They were not married. Texas law would not allow it. But Reconstruction changed everything. After the Civil War, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in 1865. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to formerly enslaved people in 1868. And for the first time, they had the legal right to marry. And on June 3rd of 1868, 12 years after Annie was born, Sammy and Malvina Moore walked the Nueces County Courthouse, right here on this block. The building standing here today is the third courthouse built on the same ground. But the one that stood here in 1868 is where they filed their marriage license. Volume C, page 366. Sammy and Malvina Moore stood before a judge and got married legally, finally. The judge who performed that ceremony was John Dix, a Unionist appointed during Reconstruction. The same system that had kept them from marrying for 12 years finally gave them that right. Sammy Moore, Malvina Garrett Moore, married at last. Now, here's the good. They built something out of nothing. Sammy worked, Malvina worked. They raised Annie, and they were part of their community. They were known, and they were loved. And then on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1889, Sammy Moore died. He had survived slavery. He had survived the Civil War. He had chosen this city and this woman over freedom in Mexico. He died on Christmas Day. And Malvina, the woman who had arrived here as someone else's property on New Year's Day in 1849, she kept going. She lived another 21 years after him. She took in laundry, she took in sewing, and she watched her daughter Annie become a teacher. She watched her grandchild Wren grow up in a free Corpus Christi. She died in 1910, 61 years after she arrived here with nothing. They are both buried right here in Old Bayview Cemetery, the same cemetery as the man who owned them. And here is what the 1900 census shows us. After Sammy died, Malvina and Annie were living practically next door to Cornelia Moore, Colonel Moore's own daughter. The slave owner's family and the slave's family, side by side, in the city that they had built. Malvina Garrett arrived here on New Year's Day of 1849 as someone else's property. She left this world in 1910 as a free woman, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, in a city that would not exist without the people it refused to recognize. If you have not watched episodes 1 through 3 of the Curveball Investigates South Texas series, start there, because every single story connects. That is the Curveball. Bizarre, beautiful, and oh, so true. And I will see you in the shadows.